Okay, hello guys. Thank you for attending my session here. Yeah, so this is probably one of the more advanced topics, I guess, coming down from Robert's about Claris Studio. This is kind of zooming out again into the Claris Pro, FileMaker Pro workflows again. I hope so. I think that as well. So yeah, we're gonna talk about a tool that I've developed called Devin, and basically it's a tool that will allow you to kind of adapt what in the other software world where we don't use FileMaker, we use a lot of tools to speed up processes and ensure that we can roll out new updates safely and stuff like that. So this is kind of making a tool like that, but for FileMaker. Firstly, I'm just gonna give you an overview of me. Then we're gonna talk about the term software development lifecycle. So what is the software development lifecycle and why is it important? Then I'm gonna show you briefly some Devin features, and then I'm gonna play for you a demo. So I'm not doing a live demo because I was advised not to. So that's like a 10-minute video I'm gonna play for you. If some of you have watched any of my other presentations at AutoEndo Live or Claris Beyond or something like that, it will be the same. So I hope you're not bored if you have already seen that. And then this tool was actually part of my master thesis at the IT University of Copenhagen. So I'm gonna show you some actual concrete and tangible results that a tool like this will have on your team. And then also throughout this presentation, you might think, hey, I already know a tool that can do something like this called Auto or 360 deploy or whatever you're using. So I'm just gonna show you kind of well, it is a comparison, but it's not because it's a competitor in that way, just to show how it's different. And then lastly, just touch upon the product roadmap for this. So this tool is a hobby for me. My full-time job is in my startup called Carl, where we develop AI for farmers. We do that using other technologies like AWS Lambda, API Gateway, DynamoDB, stuff like that, using Python and Golang as languages. I also have a small consultancy for FileMaker apps, so I also know your struggles a little bit. Then I have a master's degree in software development from the IT University. And in my spare time, where I'm not coding this tool, I'm also a private in the Danish National Guard. So the software development lifecycle, like what is that? You probably know, and you have probably seen this icon before. We usually call it DevOps, and what this is kind of to symbolize the whole lifecycle of a piece of software. So it goes all the way from planning to code to build, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor, and then it starts over. That's every time you make a new release of your software. Now the problem is that in my thesis I found that actually 51% of 50 people that I surveyed, they do live development. So they make changes directly on the production files. And I guess that also counts for this room. Can I get some, yeah. People are like, yeah, we all do it.
That's also why we love FileMaker, because it's doable.
Exactly, but it can also be insecure, right? So it really depends on the purpose of your solution and everything. So, but the reason why we do that is because it's too hard to kind of follow what in the other software world we refer to as best practices, like the way you do development on a separate development copy, and you have some automated testing, you have some pipelines that throw out, deploys the solutions and migrates it, right? So essentially what we want is, optimally, is that this whole flow should be as streamlined, as fast and seamless as possible. Because then you can throw out new versions to your clients faster and more securely without worrying too much that your new build broke something. So this tool, Devin, it's essentially a complete tool set that will streamline this whole DevOps process, or at least the phases of DevOps that are the most important ones. basically, we could categorize the features of this tool kind of in two different ways, what it allows you to do. It allows you firstly to adapt modern practices and ensure a higher quality. So that's by streamlining that whole process, right? We do that by offering a branch development environment. So you don't do development on the production files, you do that on a separate development file. You can do that, the whole team can exit that same development file. In this tool is also built in version control, and you can change log. So everyone on the team can make, it's almost like a git commits, but it's not an actual commit, but it's for now it's just a comment. So kind of create a transparency in the team who made what changes and so on. Then it also facilitates something that is very rarely known in the FileMaker community, but regression testing. So unit testing and integration testing, like testing the logic of your code using code. So that's a big thing in the other software development world, where you write as much test code as you do normal code. So this tool can facilitate that. You still have your right to write your own tests, but you can run them easily in here and have a nice overview. And then it also allows you to kind of stage the changes that you make in an isolated environment. So if you have like a testing server where you want to like manually test something as well before production, you can also do that. And then lastly, it does kind of what a tool like Otto would also do. Saves you time by automating the whole deployment and migration processes. And behind the scenes is doing a lot of like automated file operations and stuff like that. There's also a centralized server window where you can, instead of having like 20 different browser tabs open with admin console, you can have them in one window here. So to kind of, how to say, symbolize the workflow, the ideal workflow that a tool like this should facilitate is that we want to have a development file, or we are developing something, then we constantly want to test that. We don't want to first test it when we deploy it to another server or anything. So we want to write unit tests and integration tests that we can iteratively like test if the logic is working. So that's kind of the orange loop that goes there. Then when you're done with that, you can document what you did so the rest of the team can see it, and so that you can remember it in a year, like when you made what change and stuff like that. Then when you're satisfied with that, you can release it. And then it kind of opens up the door to a deployment. And in this tool, you add your different deployments. You can have multiple servers. If you have a vertical solution, you can have a copy for each client. Like it will automatically like split it out. And this is also where you have the kind of the staging opportunity. So there's no real limit to this. You could have separate servers for different staging, how to say, phases, if you would like to. And then if you are satisfied with that, you can finally release it to production. That's the whole point. So to allow that the whole process is seamless. And then throughout all of these phases, it's very important that you can monitor it, that you have transparency and can see what's going on. So this is essentially the workflow that Devin is built around. And now I will show you a video.
Dim the lights a little bit? Or
yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Serious dimming.
Yeah, well, I asked them if we could have like a in-between thing, but no, that was not possible.
I go down to my dock, and here I have Devin. When Devin has opened up, I get to see the different projects that I have. And Devin is actually providing what you would think of as, if you have experience with programs like Xcode, Devin actually provides an Xcode-like feeling to FileMaker development. For this example, we'll be using Carl. When I click on Carl, it opens up the project workspace for Carl. In here is actually where I do everything related to DevOps for my Carl files. It has 4 different tabs up here. The first one being the configuration. So this is where I configure and handle settings for this project basically. In Devin, Devin is built around the practice that you want to separate your software by concern, as it's called. So we want not to have a single solution file with all the functionality and all the code. We would actually like to split it out so that we have a file handling different parts of the software. And that's of course up to you how you do that. And you also might not do it, but this is what Devin is kind of built for. So in Devin, a file is actually referred to as a module. So in this project, I have a bunch of different files. Then in the branches tab, this is actually where I interact with these files. And this is where I perform operations on them. And it's also where I document changes for them. So you have a master branch that actually defines what is your production files looking like. And then we also have a development branch, which is hosting all the development copies that we're working on so that we don't make edits directly to the master files. I also have a recovery stack over here where I can actually, per module, I can see what previous versions exist. And this is not a feature that is working yet, but soon there'll be an ability to restore and roll back a version if an error happened or so. I can also, if I click on a module, I can see the specific changelog for this module, for this version. If I click on it again, I get this drop-down menu where I can now, like this, see the complete history of edits to this file. And lastly, there's a deployment tab that actually shows the actual deployment files on the servers. Here I can see how many users are connected to the file at the moment, when was the last activity. I also get an overview of what version, what file is on here, and whether it is on the latest version. On the left here, I can have different, what in Devin I call deployment groups. So for instance, you might not want to have one file for all your clients. Maybe you want to have one file per client that you copy out. So this is a way to group files together. But you can actually also use it if you want, for instance, a test group. So when you deploy a new version of a file, maybe you don't want to deploy it directly just to production. So here I'll be showing an example where I have a test deployment group that I will deploy to first. And this could of course be on a different test server or whatever. Okay, so let's dive in to this. So let's say I would like to make a change to my module called field condition service. I'll press this one, and then I'll press branch. This will then copy the master file and deploy it on the development branch for us to make edits on it. Devin here is communicating with FileMaker's native APIs like the admin API and the data API, and also using the command line interface. And sometimes these tasks might take a while because, as you know, opening and closing files on the server sometimes it takes a while. So here Devin is waiting for that. And I think we are soon ready. Yep. So now here we have a development copy of the field condition service master file. And it automatically incremented the version number to 1.2.5 here. If I want to access this, I can actually just click this one. Then I log into it. And now I've opened this file. So this is also a way of actually not even using FileMaker's built-in overview of files, but the idea is here that you actually access all your files, all your development files at least, through the Devin workspace, which is just a very centralized and integrated way of doing it. Okay, so we have opened up this file. So now let's make an edit to this file. I'll open up the script workspace, and I would like to implement some error handling in this script that fetches some data from an external API. So let's say I would like to check whether the pulley ID is empty or not. So I'll say if is empty, pulley ID should. I would like that it should return error. And I save it. I I can keep it open or I can close it. Now I'll keep it open. I want to log that I added error handling to weather fetch. And this is a feature. I could also say that it's a bug fix or a deprecation of something. And I add it, and it's now added to the changelog here. So if other people, if any other from my team would also be making changes to this file, they would also appear here, and I would be able to see here who made what changes. Now on this development file, I also have another button, and this one, it gives me all the different operations I can make on this development file. And before I release it, I would like to run my tests that I've developed for this file. So I click test. Now it's finding the different tests in the file, and there was an error. And click here and see, okay, this test failed. I can also go into this window, the runner window, and select tests here, and then I get an overview like this. Here I can also see the duration of the test, and I can see some different information about who performed the test, what was the method, and what version, etc. Okay, let's find out why the test failed. I'll open up the script workspace again. And Devin requires that your tests are hosted in a parent folder called tests here. In here right now, I have two different tests. I practice the naming convention for tests, the given, when, then convention. You can use whatever convention you do, and you probably have a total different naming convention. I see here the test that failed was the given fetch when passed missing poly ID, then return 10,002 error. That one failed. Okay. And actually I know why. That's because I didn't return the error code. I just returned a string called error. So I'll fix that. And I will run the test again. And it succeeded. Perfect. And also what you might notice is that here, when I had a failed test, I'm actually not able to release the module. And that's because of a setting in the configuration page, where I can define that I would only allow to release a module if all tests have passed. That can also be disabled. But now, all the tests completed. That's perfect. So now we know that it's ready to roll. I will quickly just add a bug fix. I will say fixed. I will say fixed 10,002 error handling. Now that's added. And now I can release it. I press release and I give it a new version number. Let's say 1.2.6. Now it will trigger the release process. It will do a lot of file handling and it will push the different files. And now it was released. It shows a few warnings, and that's nothing to worry about. It's just that it's retrying a few calls here, I can see. Nothing, no issue. So now, this has now replaced the previous file in the master branch. And in the releases pane, I can now see the new version here, and I can see that no migrations have been triggered. Also in the deployments phase, it now shows that there's an update available to these two production files. In the configuration, I could have actually enabled auto deploy and migrate after release. That would actually automatically have initiated the update process. But if you like the control to manually update it or to schedule an update, this is the way to do it. And now I would actually want to only just update the test deployment group. I won't update the one that my users are connected to. So I press update, and here I can choose update now. It will just initiate the update right now, or I can schedule it for later. If you have service windows, this might be a nice way to schedule it for like an overnight schedule. I will just press update now. If I open the runner window again, where we saw the tests, there's actually also a migrations pane. Here, I get an overview of all the migrations that I've done. And we can see here that now there's actually one initiated for the one we just triggered. So here I can see that it's the group tests, and it's from this version to this version, it's on this server, and it was a manual triggering. And here I can follow the status, and I can also abort it if I like. This process will take a few minutes because Devin, the way Devin works is that it's actually a scheduled, it's a schedule that will run system scripts, and that will only be triggered every minute. So while this is happening, I can show you something else here. In the configuration tab, I can also specify if I want a certain minimum inactivity period. For instance, maybe I don't want to update any file that has had a user connected within the last 30 minutes. I can also specify how many concurrent migration processes I would allow simultaneously. This would avoid server crashes if you have concurrent TMT processes, for instance. There is also a monitoring window that is actually just a centralized space for all your servers where you can see all the different files and their statuses. So this would be an alternative to have different browser tabs open. Okay, going back, we can see it's now been past 2 minutes, and it's actually migrating right now. And it is now completed, we see. And we see that it took 4 minutes. As a last thing, the runner window also has a convenient console log space here. So this is actually where you can see what's going on, what Devin is actually doing in the background. So if you interpret any errors, you can actually see all the different logs that are created for this.
Yep. Yes, success. Did you fall asleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's late, I know. Okay, so hopefully this kind of showed you like a demo, like from, like through that whole DevOps process, like from development to actually migrating the solution. And of course, stuff was like fast forwarded, and, but it kind of showed you like every step of that process. I hope it did at least. So as I mentioned in the beginning, this was actually my master thesis, and in a master thesis you need to have some results. So I spent a lot of time trying to develop results for this, because it's really hard to, how do you measure how a tool like this optimizes like a team's DevOps capability or like maturity. So I reached out and found 2 of the major accepted DevOps maturity models that exist in the world, and did a lot of research and stuff on that. So what I found was that using a tool like Devin would optimize your version control and branching capabilities by 20 to 40%, your testing by 30 to 60%, deployment by 30 to 40%, and monitoring by 25%. Revenue? No, your DevOps capabilities, or like your DevOps performance. So this is all. This is all. I know it's maybe hard to like understand these numbers now, but I just want to show these concrete results. And you can, on the Devin website, devin.fm, you can download my thesis paper, and if you have the patience, you can read it all, and then you will understand why. So it's all like described in there, like how these numbers are derived, and there's like some basic models where you can kind of like categorize. If you are doing this in your process, it means that you are like 1/3 of the step towards 100% DevOps. So, yeah, so as I also mentioned in the beginning, and as you saw in the demo, the actual deployment and the migration, you could get a tool like Otto to do that as well. But Devin has kind of like a different focus, whereas Otto is very like a manual. You kind of have to like do stuff, like it's not a complete workspace that you do all the steps in. It's very focused around the deployment and migration and file monitoring, and they also have a logging API, so it's a bit more advanced in that sense, and some different integrations and webhook receivers and stuff like that. But Devin's focus is more about supporting the complete software lifecycle and not only the deployment and operation and monitoring side. So if you kind of compare these two tools in what areas they kind of facilitate, this would look like this. Lastly, so this Devin is currently in beta. Yesterday, number 100th beta tester signed up. So yeah, I'm not the only one thinking that this is interesting. But this is also like a side project for me. It's not my full-time job. But we're planning to launch beta 6 in like early 2023, because currently on the server side it's only supported on Windows Server. Because when I built this 2 years ago in my thesis, nobody was using Linux. But yeah, so that's coming. And also what's coming in 1.1 will be that you can actually share these projects with your teammates, because currently it's only like single user based. And there will also be coming some more advanced migration settings that you may know from Otto, like choosing where your value list data things come from and your fonts and stuff like that. We're also working on analyzing to have a more advanced changelog, actually facilitating code diffs if you have experience with that. So we will actually be utilizing Git. There's another developer in Europe who actually developed a tool that you install in your script workspace. It will save your scripts as text files. So that could actually provide that capability. So that's also coming. And also to have a more like automated changelog overview, almost like you would get from one of the tools from Geist Interactive, where you can see like this field changed, this table changed and stuff like that. That's coming in the future. And even more future, also a logging API, so that in that runner window, you could actually feed like live crashes or errors to you, so you could observe them while they happen. That's the plan. And there is a public roadmap also on the Devin website, where you can go and you can request features, and if you are a tester, that's also where you report bugs, and you can upvote each other's feature requests and stuff like that. So that was my presentation for this.